question, and you can also use this question as your sum up as well. What drives you to be a councillor? Go to Andrew.
I was brought up by parents that always taught me to take an active interest in the world around me, and particularly my local community. And wherever I've lived across the country, I've always taken an active interest in my village or my town, the area where I lived. And that what is really what drives me for public service is I have the skills, I have the ability, I have the opportunity to pay back to society. I know it's a really trite thing that quite often politicians come out with. And I originally stood for council because I was motivated by what I thought was an unjust decision that was held in private without the knowledge of the local community, which was the closure of the public toilets in my own village in Kinlochleven. They were simply not opened up again after the winter closure. And that infuriated me that a council or councillors could behave in that manner. And I stood then with no expectation that I would get elected, but just to highlight that such a thing could happen. And that provided me the opportunity to raise many other issues that affect Lochaber that I felt either go unnoticed or unmentioned. And I want to have that opportunity again to be Lochaber's advocate on Highland Council rather than an apologist for Highland Council and just accepting what the council says or what officers tell you in a report, and always questioning or asking that question, well, why? Why should that be the case? Why should that happen in Lochaber and not elsewhere? And if I'm fortunate enough to be elected on the 21st of November, that is the principle that I will take for the next term of office. And may I thank you, Marie, whilst I have a few more seconds left, for arranging and hosting this hustings tonight. I think it's been very well mannered and engaging, and actually demonstrates that actually we have more in common despite our political divides than what most people would believe.
Thank you, Andrew. We'll go to Rebecca.
My drive has always been of service, to serve my community. I have always wanted to give back, and I've always wanted to support and advocate for others. I have obviously served in education for 30 years, but before that, when I was at university, I used to work in care and for Barnardo's, and I toyed between medicine, social work and education as my careers, all of which were looking at public service and serving my community. Now that I'm retired, I feel I've got another opportunity and some more time to give back in a different way, but again, as a public servant, to support communities across this enormous ward. I suppose one of the questions I've been asked is, why on earth am I standing as SNP? You know, as a head teacher, I never had a party allegiance, because obviously you can't, and it's very important to be completely neutral. For me, standing as an SNP, as councillor, clearly when you're voting in the local council election, the mandate, it's got nothing to do with independence. But I think it's important to be honest and have integrity about what your views are. So if people saw me standing campaigning for independence in 2026 during the Scottish elections, they might wonder why I was doing that if I hadn't been honest at this point in time. So I know that even if I promise free rainbows and lollipops to all, because I'm wearing an SNP badge, I'm going to put some people off. But I think it's really important to have that honesty, integrity about who you are and what you stand for. I have no higher ambitions other than to represent Fort William and Ardnamurchan. It's not a stepping stone for me at all. It's about conducting myself with integrity and giving back to the community in a different way than I've done before. But also to give back those skills that I've learned as 30 years as an educator. I know what it's like to be running small rural schools and to be teaching in small rural schools, and to be trying to do that without support assistance as well. So I'm hoping that my skills will be a good use to our community and to the council, and that's why I'm standing.
That's great. Thank you, Rebecca. We'll go to Susan.
I think you can't complain about things if you don't try and sort them out. And I think politics is incredibly difficult. I think it's awful the way we keep slagging politicians, because it is very difficult to put policy into practice. And I think it's a fascinating piece of work, you know, the difference between your ideals and, okay, how do you cost it? What can we actually do on the ground? I find all of that very gripping. I think it's fascinating. And I love Lochaber. I just feel delighted to be here, and I love it. So that's it.
Thanks, Susan. And Nathan.
Yeah, just to sort of to borrow what Susan was saying, that it's that belief, because I mean, I think, you know, we all have friends and family who will sit there and they'll complain about the state of things and how everything's terrible and how it's all gone wrong. And I think it's really the reason I sort of decided to stand and start down this path is because, yeah, I realized that, as Susan says, you can't just sit and complain about how everything's terrible and how nothing's right, and not try to make an effort to change those things yourself, and at least stand up and, you know, whether, you know, well, at the end of the day, that, you know, I think this is a phenomenal thing that everyone's doing, regardless of whether, you know, who's elected or not. The fact that people will understand there and, you know, and try to offer a solution and make, you know, themselves heard, I think is a phenomenal thing and a very admirable thing, to be honest. And so yeah, that was sort of what drove me to try to sort of step into politics again, in a small way at least. Anyway, it was the fact that yeah, I felt like you can't just stand on the sidelines and say everything's terrible. You need to actually at least try to be a part of the solution instead of part of the, you know, the masses, you know, of people just saying it's all terrible. And yeah, I thought I love this. You know, I was born and raised in the Highlands. I've, you know, been all over the Highlands many times working and whatnot. It's a beautiful place, an incredible place, and a very unique place. And you know, what better thing to do than try to, in the best of your ability, serve that and make it a better place for the people that live there and the people that visit here. I can't think of anything better to do, a more worthwhile endeavor than to try in every way you can to make it a better place to be. I just think that that's a wonderful honor, you know, to be able to do something like that, and to even have a chance to stand and be even remotely considered for it is incredible, you know. So yeah, that's the reason I decided to get into it. Is I thought, you know, I'll stop being one of the complainers. I'll actually stand up and try to make a difference. And yeah, the reasons I would genuinely consider it an honor. And yeah, just to round up with the minute, I'd just like to say thank you for having this opportunity. It's been wonderful to speak and listen to all of you. It's been wonderful to be here.